Hello my dears, welcome to the show. I want to start with a recommendation for you if you get the chance. I went to a screening last night to see Elizabeth, A Portrait in Parts on the big screen. And I know it's going to be, or might already be available, I think on Amazon Prime or some kind of platform. I'm afraid you'll have to do some Googling to look about for it. But if you get the chance to see it, I think there's a limited edition run in the UK at selected cinemas on the big screen. It was so bloody good. It was really stirring and moving, and I'm going to really struggle to explain to you what it is. It's the final work of the director of Notting Hill, you know, that movie with Julia Roberts and Hugh Grant. It's his final project. He died last year in September at the age of 65 of cancer. But this was a lovely final project for him. And it's a tapestry, it's a patchwork. There's no narration, no biography, but you learn much more about the Queen in this than you will learn from any biography, because it is hundreds upon thousands of as much archive footage of the Queen, candid moments mixed in with all her public engagements, hundreds of thousands. It's like a shower of confetti, not in chronological order, but with a strange orchestrated harmony to it. It arrives in various chapters entitled things like Horribilis, Mummy, that bring together and congregate various parts of that portrait of the Queen. And seeing these hundreds upon thousands of little spliced moments brings her alive in a really unique way that I've never seen done before. I was moved to tears throughout the whole thing. One of my favourite parts was seeing the coronation on a big screen. It's like front row of the house. It's like you're one of those ladies in waiting there at the side, watching the crown placed on Her Majesty's head right in front of you in vivid Technicolor. I'm so sorry to go over the top, my dears. It was wonderful to see, and I will never have that chance to see that again on the big screen. And it was like when I went to go and see The Wizard of Oz once on the big screen at the cinema, and I'd seen it 1,000 times on a little box, which is wonderful enough, but when you see it as it was intended to be seen, you know, it's a completely different experience. And this was one of those Technicolor glorious moments. They splice together so many things, and they don't force you into emotion. This, you know, in the way that reality shows or naff movies will use music, you know, music is always employed to tell you how to feel, and a good composer and director of music will do that without you noticing. This is why I can't watch things like, I don't know, Britain's Got Talent, or some of those reality shows where suddenly the violins will come in, they'll be telling you exactly how to feel and emote, and they'll do all this kind of naff editing of the audience's reaction. And I just think, you know, you can see their technique, you can see through it. Well, the choices in this movie of the music that they choose, everything from Norman Wisdom to Stormzy, that they place over this archive footage, which is incredibly British and nostalgic, and you see wonderful glimpses of the Commonwealth and the people, and you see hundreds upon thousands of the Queen shaking hands with people and meeting with all her prime ministers and all her diplomats. You know, you see her engaging with her 14, however many prime ministers it is, in 1 minute. And you see the breadth of what she's offered, you see the stability, you see the first ever handshake that she was captured on film doing 85 years ago, or whenever it was, in black and white. They run the last handshake from last year, and they do this sort of kaleidoscope going back in time to when she was, I don't know, 2 or 3 years old, and she was captured giving her first handshake to somebody. They show the beauty of her romance with Prince Philip and his gorgeous handsomeness. He actually reminded me a bit in his early days of, you know, he's too skinny to be my type, to be honest, is, but he had that devilish, dashing grin that reminded me a bit of the actor, quite unknown actor, Charlie Schlatter, I think it's pronounced. There was something of the grin there that reminded me of him. But you see that joy, you see the Queen's beauty when she was young, you hear that voice of her trilling away, you see the people of England when in a more deferential time, close up, all throughout the country with their bunting at all the jubilees. And sorry, I'm getting too exercised, aren't I? I'm sorry if this is boring for you, my dears, but it just it really stirred me and moved me, and it doesn't just paint a rosy picture. It's not just of interest for monarchists. They don't shy away from all the controversial stuff, and that makes it all the more powerful because you're left with a focus on the Queen, just the Queen. They just show who she is and what she's done, and the audience is left to make up their own minds without any prodding and poking, you know, because that always feels mawkish anyway, and sort of like a hagiography type thing. It's not that, but anyone will leave that, I think, at least acknowledging what a remarkable job she's done, how royalty, the soft power of royalty, conjures up such respect, such a continuum of national solidarity. See it if you can. You will love it. I found the trailer on YouTube, my dears, so I've put the link in the description box below this video. Sadly, it loses much of its impact on the small screen as opposed to a great big screen in front of you. It's a completely different experience, but it'll certainly be worth watching. Okay, we're going to have to talk about this, aren't we? Meghan in Texas. Everybody's up in arms. Lady Caribou says, OMG River, Megs comes to Texas, to Uvalde. I hope I pronounced that right, by the way. I'm not quite sure. I think it's Uvalde. Even if her intentions were pure, this is the scene of children being massacred. It is no place for a publicity stunt. They could have gone together and donated blood, or made donations to the community, or used the money spent on a private plane to help offset funeral expenses. I still have family there. It's a small community. Helping to lift the burden during this tragic time would have done so much more. Why do they continue to miss the mark when they have so many opportunities in front of them? Can't wait to hear your thoughts. And I'll just read one more from DB. M made an appearance after the horrible massacre in Texas. It was really unusual. I've not seen any celebrities ever do that, the Gates, or any well-known figures besides the president. What's happening here? It was televised and a lot of very candid cover photos. She brought sandwiches for the volunteers. It doesn't feel authentic. I'm sure she is not the leader we needed for this. Bad timing, and I'm not sure anybody believes it wasn't staged. I read she took a private jet and came with sandwiches. Well, it's very multi-layered, and she does leave me scratching my head. And like many of you, my thoughts go out to the people of Texas and their families. I think, you know, I spent last night crying watching this portrait of the Queen. I think I spent the night before crying looking at the little faces of those kids, because it's just beyond, isn't it? Beyond heartbreaking. So we can all understand why anyone would be moved to help. And I will begin by saying, you know, there's so many different points of view when it comes to Meghan's reaction. And I will begin by saying that the point of view for many people who were there and in the community was one of gratefulness to Meghan. And they don't seem to have a problem with her showing up there. And on one level, I do find it difficult to criticise somebody who turns up in an apparent effort to promote community help, volunteering, random acts of kindness, you could call it, or targeted acts of kindness, whatever it is. On one level, there is that. And people there were full of praise for her. I'm not going to pee on your leg and tell you it's raining. People there seemed glad that she came. But there are other levels to this, and I have to agree that it is peculiar that she behaves like a head of state flying in on that private jet when they lecture about climate change, you know. I could understand more if she was some elected leader or politician. We know that there's this understanding she might have ambitions in that direction, so maybe she wants to show off her credentials. And I don't doubt that she was genuinely moved being there in her capacity as a private citizen and a mother. What human being wouldn't be moved by the whole thing? But is she completely unaware how ingratiating it looks to hop immediately on a plane. And yes, we know you want to offer immediate help and sustenance to the people there and the families. But where I would agree with you in some of these points and some of these comments you're making is that it should have been done without any chance of her being captured for her to make the headlines. There are those that say she came with crews and was aware of the cameras and stuff. There are those that say, no, she just came with one member of security and it was very quiet. But she knew, as much as we all knew, that she would have become the story. And whether she had good intentions or not, she should not be encouraging the news stories surrounding this massacre to be about her and the photographs about her. So I could even forgive her casting off her green credentials, dashing on her private jet and going there. I could even see through that if she just went to that volunteer centre and did her bit quietly, without any fanfare, without any chance of being seen or recognised, without posing for photos with the volunteers. I don't know if they've made a financial donation. I don't think anything official has been announced. I wouldn't be surprised if they do, you know. And I did see something about some wealthy person, an anonymous man, donated over $100,000 for funeral expenses. As far as I know, that's still anonymous. I don't know. It did cross my mind. I want, you know, Prince Harry could have done that. I wouldn't put it past them to do that. That might not be the case, of course, but I wouldn't put it past them to make a donation. And anything like that, even if they announced it through Archewell, I wouldn't be raising an eyebrow at or scoffing at. It is the public show that she knows will bring attention to her and her mourning. And I just think it was very fresh, it was still very raw, and as much as we'd all like to rush there and put our arms around the neighbourhood and do what we can to help, it can read as rather vulgar, whether I think it is or not. And she's taken a real battering in the UK press for this. A real battering for it. People aren't... She's got a lot of criticism for it, whether she meant well or not. And on another level, you know, this is multi-layered, so I can't just give you, ooh, this is how it is, because I'm digesting it as you are, my dears. I've seen a lot of nonsense about it, which I don't believe and don't go in for. I don't think it's the worst thing she's ever done in the world. I hear that there are various quarters where people have said, well, why are people criticising Meghan when they didn't criticise Catherine when she turned up at a memorial event for a lady who was murdered here some time ago? Well, from my understanding, she only turned up with discreet security and no photographers. I don't know if that's true, but from my understanding, she didn't bring or encourage or tip off any photographers. She was only photographed because somebody there recognised her, even though she was very dressed down and sort of plain-faced. I'm not going to pretend to be as mad or as angry about it as many of you seem to be. There are other things going on in the world at the moment to get exercised at. But that doesn't mean that I'm not disappointed that she didn't make the decision to do it with more discretion. You know, I don't really have a problem with the expressions of compassion that she wants to make. But I do have a problem with her allowing herself to be photographed, for it to become the story. You know, it doesn't help the accusations that she gets, does it, of making everything about her. And the press have been getting jumpy about what they're going to be getting up to next week when the Jubilee comes around to make everything about them. During that weekend, we'll see. So while I'm not going to berate her for running to offer her help, for whatever reasons, I will criticise her for not choosing her moment to visit that memorial. I'm sorry, I can't remember what exactly it is, where they have the names of the children there. I think it was a sort of makeshift memorial where she laid her bouquet. I will criticise her for not going there once the paparazzi had gone, when there was no chance of her being photographed, whether that was 2 days later or 2 weeks later. She could have made that a private moment for herself to show her respects, and then it would have been something precious and altruistic for her heart rather than for the world's media to jump upon. I want to thank my fruits for having the good grace to allow me to air my opinion on Mr. Markle, which is different to many other people's opinion of him. And I'm aware that loads of you disagree and loads of you like Mr. Markle, but I want to thank the vast majority of you for being very tolerant of my view. All I ask you, I'm not trying to convince you to agree with me. I hope I'm not anyway. Perhaps sometimes I am, but that isn't really my aim. I just want to invite you to open your mind to something that isn't just an echo chamber of like, right, you don't like Meghan Markle, so that means you have to agree with us on everything else. No, that's not life, and that's not me. I am not part of any community, any online community. I don't consider you the River community. I'm very suspicious and actually hateful of online communities. And I've learned that they have a very dark side, and that people turn against people, they turn against creators in the name of community. I see you, you know, most of my shows at this moment in time get round about 100,000 views per video, give or take a few thousand either side, which is utterly magical to me. It's beyond my expectations, and the fact that I've managed to maintain it over a few months is very special. What goes up must come down, and it might end, you know, that might change next week or next year, who knows. But while it lasts, it's just magical. But for those 100,000 of you who are watching, I see you as a collection of individuals. You know, you're all my different fruit crumbles, and I call you mine, but of course you're not mine, you're your own people. But you know, I see you when I read the comments. I don't think of you as a community of I'm just not into that at all. I'm into the individuals, and I don't move with the herd, I don't follow the herd, and you know, perhaps that is to my detriment. You know, I am not naive, and I know that as happy as I am with my viewership, it would go up, it would triple, you know, triple, quadruple within a matter of weeks if I decided to just spew hate about Meghan Markle in every single video and toe the line about the thinking with regards to her father and her family. I'm not naive. That's all I'd have to do, my dear. Just spout that to you. And the viewership would go up because you could rely on me to have a particular pattern of thought that goes in line with many people's out there. But I have to sleep at night. I have to sleep at night, and I have to come to you with a certain amount of authenticity about my feelings. And, you know, I make no secret of the fact that this is a bit of theatre for you. It's a bit of, with a sprinkling of parody and a dash of, you know, a wink and a nudge, my dear. That's, you know, I have a sort of theatrical sensibility, and it's enjoyable to share it with you. But the views I share with you have to come from my genuine convictions of how I'm feeling on that day, which may change the next day. And that's why it bemuses me where, you know, the occasional comment will come up. Joyce Schrock Heisler said, "Stop being so hard on Thomas Markle. You don't know Thomas Markle personally." And it makes me giggle, because my hunch is that you're probably here because I will at times have a go at Meghan, and you rather enjoy that. So can I ask you, my dear, what's the difference? You know, stop being hard on Thomas. You don't know Thomas personally. Well, I don't know Meghan personally, but you never complained about me being harsh on her, have you? What's the difference? I don't know Meghan personally or Thomas personally. Does that mean I can't have an opinion on either of them, or criticise either of them? You can't have it both ways, my dear. And I won't tackle the subject of Mr. Markle any further today. And as I said before, I wish him nothing but the best and good wishes for a speedy recovery, and I genuinely mean that. But I may broach something in future, because there's lots of very compelling arguments about how splendid he and Samantha are, in the press I mean, on television and in newspapers, and you'll see compelling arguments about that. But what people don't talk about is Roslyn. And although a few of you will know that name, the funny thing is, a lot of you won't be aware of Roslyn. Thomas's first wife, Samantha and Thomas Jr.'s mother, Roslyn Markle, née Roslyn Lovelace. I noticed one comment in the comment section saying, "Why doesn't anybody talk about Roslyn?" And this piqued my curiosity, and we're able to filter all of our comments by word. And I typed the word Roslyn into my comment section. And do you know, in all the months that I've done this channel, I only had this one comment asking, why does nobody talk about Roslyn? Which was very interesting to me, because you guys tell me everything and give me loads of information, and no one had ever mentioned Roslyn from what I could see. That was the only mention. Lots of you won't be aware of Noel, Samantha's daughter. And both Samantha's daughter and mother are estranged from Samantha. And although they've largely kept a dignified silence, they didn't speak for 3 years after Meghan came to the limelight. But eventually I think they did perhaps one interview that I can find, 1 or 2 interviews. Before the wedding, I think this was. And they have a different experience. So for everybody who says that everyone who's known Mr. Markle for years, I've seen this in the press, everyone who's known Mr. Markle for years says how wonderful he is, what a lovely guy, would never hurt her to flee. Well, they weren't married to him, like Roslyn Markle, who was married to him, I haven't got those notes here, for 9 years, I think, before Doria. They weren't married to him for that time. And like I told you in my video about Mr. Markle, I said, what about people who get divorced and they begin seeing this charming, wonderful character, as Roslyn Markle said she saw in Thomas Markle. I think he was only 20 years old when they met. She said he was tall, handsome, charming. Everything that you see in this affable chap. Well, things changed. And I'm not going to go into it in this video, but I might bring it up again in a future video, because I didn't know much about this. In fact, I knew nothing, to be quite honest with you. I have the Diary of Princess Pushy, the charmingly entitled book by Meghan's loving sister Samantha Markle. I tried reading it a while ago, but it wasn't really my cup of tea, but I might have to plunge into it again, because I've marked a few pages that I might bring to your attention in the future. So we'll look at that. But yes, they had some very interesting things to say, as I'm sure some of you might be aware. And I remain open to all views and all possibilities, including the possibility that my intuition is way off and that I'm wrong. But what I will tell you, my dear, for the moment, I might go into it further later, but what I will tell you, my dear, when I saw the video of Noel, Samantha's daughter, speaking out, I believed every word she said. I believed every word she said about her mother, Samantha Markle. It rang completely true to me. So we'll draw a line under this topic today, but I make no apologies for having my own views. I thank those of you who agree with me and who don't, who show me respect. For the very small handful of people that displayed their anger and frustrations with me for having a different... somebody told me that they had to go and lie down because they got so emotional because of what I'd said about Mr. Markle. Although I feel that even though I was criticising him, I was rather respectful throughout the whole thing and sent him my good wishes. But, we all have the right to discuss these people. And, if it's getting to the point where you have to lie down because I'm saying something that you don't agree with and you're getting emotional and crying over it, then it's time to get out more or change the medication. So even if you're convinced that my intuition is wrong and Thomas and Samantha are misunderstood, surely at least people deserve a hearing and an airing from the testimony of his own wife of 9 years, his first wife. Excuse that. Surely they deserve a testimony, a hearing of that person and also of Samantha's own daughter. Even if you discard it afterwards and think they're lying, they're terrible, no, we don't believe them, we're going to go with Samantha. Even if you think that, surely at least being presented that testimony and that airing is fair enough. I also want to take this moment to clarify the fact that I was not throwing any shade on any broadcaster, journalist, photographer or commentator, be it on YouTube or anywhere else, in that video about Mr. Markle. Because I had 1 or 2 comments suggesting that I was. As I made clear in the video, my criticism was for Mr. Markle's judgment, not anybody else's platform or view or what they want to say. I made that crystal clear, that I wasn't holding anybody else to account. I was holding his decisions to associate with production teams and all these other kinds of people who disparage his daughter. But they have the right to disparage his daughter. I disparage his daughter from time to time. So I'd feel the same, even though I'm not as vociferous, I'd feel the same about it if he was to reach out a hand to me. Because that's peculiar. You know, he could easily find people more neutral to associate himself with, and in order to help him with his side of the story. So don't insinuate that I was throwing shade at anybody else, because if I was, I wouldn't be afraid to tell you, and I would make it perfectly clear. Okay, so that is not the case. And as for other YouTubers that discuss the royal family, I haven't watched a single one of them since last summer. I watched one or two in the run-up and round about the time of the Oprah interview when that was coming to light. One a commentator, one who's more a sort of royal historian. And when this channel started taking off, I thought, no, that's going to be a distraction. So one gets to be aware of certain names of other commentators because you tell me in the comments. I don't watch them. I never have. I'm not online, so I don't go on forums. I'm not on social media, Twitter, storms, everything like that. I don't look at it. I don't. I stay in my lane, and I think YouTube's a great place for you to be able to cherry pick whoever jives with you and whichever voice you pick up on and want to hear. And it should be a cacophony of different voices, and anyone else can do and think whatever they want. More dishy photographs of our Big Willie today, practicing trooping the colour. He was at rehearsal because he's going to be standing in for the Queen at Trooping the Colour with the Princess Royal and with Charles. We saw him in one of those enormous bearskin hats, rehearsing the Colonel's review. Oh, and by the way, I made a boo-boo in the last video, so thanks for putting me right. I've now trimmed it out, but when I mentioned the Queen and her new statue or sculpture of her riding a horse, I missed the fact that she was actually riding side saddle, so she wasn't astride the horse. So I made a silly mistake there, and I will tell you when I make a mistake like that, although I'm very glad for your comments, don't get me wrong, thank you. I always get, I think there were over 300 comments correcting me on the side saddle issue. And because I like to read as many comments of yours as I can, and when you look at a video and you see you have 2,000 comments to read, and 300 of them are saying, River, she was riding side saddle, it does begin to hurt your eyes. So you must forgive me, but after I corrected the video, I filtered the comments, and anything with mentioning the saddle I think was deleted. So if you go back and find your comments been deleted, please don't take it personally. It was just in this one instance, it was just so overwhelming. But you did exactly the right thing by telling me I was the one that made a boo-boo. But I just want to explain that it wasn't my fragile ego that made me delete your comments. It was just the fact that they were so overwhelming. There was just hundreds of me telling me I was wrong. So thank you, and I'll try not to get something wrong again. But I know that I will. William also impressed Jon Hamm, the actor Jon Hamm. It's a horrible name. Jon Hamm. This Jon Hamm was on Jimmy Fallon, and he said that the actor Miles Teller was there, and he geeked out on Prince William's eyes. Straight bloke, I think this Miles Teller is. He's married. I remember him coming back afterwards, and he was like, "They're so blue. I got lost in his eyes." He told William, apparently he told William that he loved his eyes. He said he had a funny 5 minutes, that he just got lost in the moment. And then Jimmy Fallon shared a photograph of what he thought that moment in question might have been. But yeah, apparently Miles was just lost in Prince William's baby blues. You know, some of my siblings have got my mother's eyes, which are bright blue. They are so gorgeous. And I've got to say, it's one thing that I'm rather envious. I wish I'd got her colour eyes. I've got nice green-coloured eyes, which don't really show up on here very well. But they're glittering sapphire eyes some of my family have got, and I didn't get them. But William did get them, didn't he, from Diana? You know, he got, unlike Harry, he got lots of Diana's very open, gorgeous features. Harry, I think, got a lot of the Duke of Edinburgh. I mean, I see Charles and Diana in him, and not James Hewitt. But I see a lot of the Duke of Edinburgh in him, in some of the eyes sometimes. I don't know what I see in him. He's a bit ratty looking, to be honest, isn't he? And I don't like his teeth. But William has that lovely open look, and those big blue eyes are rather lovely to behold. So yes, we'd all love to get lost in those eyes, wouldn't we? Ah, Big Willie. Well, thanks for dropping in for a chat, my fruits, and I'll see you in the next broadcast. Leave me a lovely juicy comment below, something for me to chew over, and my tip jar is in the description box below. Thank you very much, and good night.